for every president, then loss of billions. Three presidents highlighted on the front page here. The late Mt Kenya, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, and serving President William Ruto. And the Auditor General, we are told by the Daily Nation on the front page here, reported in 2019-2020 that the Women Enterprise Fund was still owed 3.37 billion shillings, out of which 80 million shillings was doubtful at the time. So Mt Kenya is credited with the Women Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Development Fund, Land Settlement Fund, Rural Enterprise Fund, and the National Humanitarian Fund, Uhuru Kenyatta Weather Fund, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, which the women reps will refer to as NGAF, and 4.6 billion shillings by June 2021. More than 4.6 billion shillings reportedly lent by the Uwezo Fund to groups of women, youth, and people with disabilities across the country remained unpaid despite the expiration of the repayment period. William Ruto credited with the Hustler Fund and the Contentious Housing Fund. 9 billion shillings is the amount the government injected into the Hustler Fund within 2 months of its launch in December of 2022. Some 18 million Kenyans were expected to borrow from the initiative. Wasteful, President Ruto is continuing a tradition by his predecessors, Uhuru Kenyatta and Mt Kenya, to create funds to provide solutions to socio-economic challenges. However, most of the funds have had duplicative roles targeting the same populations and have also had fundamental problems with their management, leading to losses and wastage, as accountability reports show. If I remember correctly, Caroline, there was an attempt to merge some of these funds, wasn't there? There was, I believe, a legislative proposal to do that, but I'll look it up and make sure I get the correct name, because there was also a name proposed for it. Okay, so front page of the Daily Nation still. For Gen Z, dress code is king. They care less about work, money, or current affairs, says new report. Interesting that. Media owners warned they would lose 2 billion shillings if finance bill is passed. And if I continue on here, I see CIMCA's vote 38-1 to kick out deputy governor. Also on the front page, an image from Nigeria. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, second right, takes oath of office during his inauguration ceremony at the Eagle Square in Abuja yesterday. The 71-year-old, who takes over from Muhammadu Buhari, promised to unite Africa's most populous nation and tackle insecurity. Also on the front page, extreme weather to worsen Kenya's food crisis, says United Nations. Acute food insecurity is likely to worsen in Kenya, and 18 hunger hotspots covering 22 countries, a United Nations Outlook report for June to November warns. So acute food insecurity is likely to worsen in Kenya, and 18 hunger hotspots covering 22 countries. More on that on page 14, and this is according to the United Nations. Raila meets MPs as Kenya Kwanza moves to save talks. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga will today chair a parliamentary group meeting of the coalition, whose resolutions could ignite his clash with President William Ruto. This even as it emerged that the government is willing to heed to the opposition's 4 irreducible minimums to save the suspended bipartisan talks. Today marks the end of Mr. Odinga's 6-day ultimatum for the Kenya Kwanza side to address their major concerns. And a part of the reason that they're holding a PG, according to Pio Wandai, who is the minority leader, is to get the house in order ahead of resumption of parliament on June the 6th, and that is next week, Tuesday. Azimio demands the coalition has requested for preliminary actions on the cost of living, preservation of the electoral agency's poll service, suspension of the IEBC selection panel, and a cessation of the interference with Azimio political parties or affiliate parties, as it were. Okay, let's take a look now at the Business Daily. And the front page story is this: State eyes telco profits in tighter dominance rules. Draft fair competition regulations get ICT ministers nod. Past rules were not explicit on market power abuse. This report by Kefa Mwiruri. An image of a lady with a phone in her hand on the front page here. Kenya revives push by African nations to ditch the dollar. This one is by Constant Munda. President William Ruto has asked African leaders to take first steps towards ditching the globally bullish US dollar by signing up to a Pan-African payment system to facilitate trade within the continent. Dr. Ruto has urged his peers in Africa to mobilize central and commercial banks to join Pan-African payments and settlement system, which was launched in January 2022. The system for inter-African trade was developed by the Exim Bank, that is an African Export-Import Bank, and African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. The initiative was backed by the African Union and African central banks. There is a quote here: "We're all struggling to make payments for goods and services from one country to another because of differences in currencies. And in the middle of all this, we are all subjected to a dollar environment." Dr. Ruto told a forum of government and private sector officials attending a forum on the African Continental Free Trade Area in Nairobi on Monday. Let's take a look at the ticker. Passport printer breaks down again. Kenyans looking for passports are set to wait for much longer after one of the printers broke down at Nyayo House in Nairobi, and the state is yet to repair it more than 2 months down the line in what promises to be another painful month for those seeking to travel. Foreign investors snap up 5 local microfinance banks. Loss-making microfinance banks have given foreign investors who want to tap into Kenya's lucrative financial sector a major window for entry. After a moratorium on licensing, new commercial banks locked out new players and safari hotels to tap into ecotourism fund. All right, so that is the front page of the Business Daily. Let's take a look at Taifa Leo. Shakahola, Raila abwaga Ruto, kimenuka, koti ya kubaliana na maoni ya Raila kuhusu uhalali wa rais kuteua kamati hiyo. Mbali na kudai kuwa kiongozi wa nchi, aliingilia uhuru wa mahakama alipomteua Jaji Lesit kuongoza kamati hiyo. And Mei siku ya 4, tarehe ambayo rais aliteua jopo la kuchunguza mauaji ya halaiki yanayohusishwa na dhehebu tata la mhubiri Paul Mackenzie. So that is the front page there of the Taifa Leo. I also see at the very top here, njaa kutesa wa Kenya hadi mwaka wa 2024. Ripoti ya Umoja wa Mataifa UN yasema Kenya, Ethiopia na Syria kuna njaa kubwa. Mashoga Uganda kusota jela maisha yote. Rais wa Uganda atia saini sheria inayoharamisha vitendo vya ushoga. And I think we'll leave it there with the Taifa Leo. Let's quickly take a look at the Star and the Standard before we get into the topic of conversation this morning. And the Standard tells us that Ruto faces taxes rebellion among Mt Kenya MPs. Elected leaders from the Deputy President's backyard are an uneasy lot after attempts to make them embrace new tax measures have fallen flat. Locals instead want taxes reduced to make life more affordable. We are not in the era where the government word was final. In this century, we need consultations and not chest thumping. And this is Gathoni wa Mushoba. And also on the front page of the Standard, Africa's largest economy in hands of Bola Tinubu, and an image there of him at his oath-taking in Nigeria. On the front page as well of the Standard, I see here, hacking claim puts Kenya at center of US-China Cold War. Ruto hints at visa-free entry for Africans. And on analysis, they have highlighted, I am increasingly convinced and confident that Kenya and Kenyans have fine ideas to fix our economy. Our politics needs to become a forum that gets this going. This one penned by Dennis Kabara. And at the very, very top here, I see... Oh yeah, they had highlighted on the question of hacking. 12 billion shillings is the cost of the National Surveillance System project awarded to Chinese firms. Okay, county bosses fight at expense of service delivery. This is in Siaya. Front page of the Star now. And we wind it up with this. Ruto UDA MPs in a tight spot over tax laws. Finance bill increasingly getting opposition from many Kenyans. Let's read that again. Ruto UDA MPs in a tight spot over tax laws. Dilemma lawmakers fear betraying voters and failing president. I see here, again, they've talked about what's happening in Uganda. Homosexuals face death in new Uganda law. An image here, let us see who this is of. This is public sector unions demonstrate yesterday in Nairobi against the proposed 3% housing levy to be deducted from their salaries. Ruto, sitaki nyumba, Mackenzie, atatubebea, no to 3%. Okay, that one I've not quite understood, but essentially what they're communicating is they are against the housing fund, the 3% levy. It will cost you 30,000 to bury in Nairobi, despite being declared full by the defunct Nairobi City Council in 1996. Langata Cemetery has remained a favorite burial site for many people. Perhaps it is due to the fact that the cemetery has resorted to grave recycling, where bodies are now getting buried on top of others. And they have highlighted, as far as OPEDs are concerned, Michael Waikenda, the resurgence of Mungiki is a concern. So I will leave the interrogation of the dailies here. They've also highlighted on the front page, Azimio PG meets to decide on talks, pick Sabina replacement. Okay, I will catch my breath and transition us into the topic of conversation this morning. If you're just